All right, Rand, Antonio Williams, Clemson. Clemson's going to have, I mean, they could, no exaggeration, have 5 or 6 guys drafted in the first round. You spent part of last week with Cade Klubnik in Las Vegas. His teammate, Antonio Williams, wide receiver, is going to have a lot to do with how successful this offense is in 2025. 5'10", 190 unofficially. He's the only wide receiver I had with a first-round grade over the course of summer scouting. I would imagine that will change once we get through the draft process. 289 days from now. My comp for him, and I'll be interested to hear what you think about this. Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed was a second-round pick coming out of Michigan State. I think he has first-round traits at times. They're still trying to sort that out in Green Bay. They keep drafting these receivers. Played half the time outside. Antonio did about half the time in the slot. Does have punt return ability. And by the way, a couple things that I look for. Two-time All-ACC academic team selection. That means something to me. But Duke can also play quarterback. He was 2 for 2 with a touchdown last season. Both throws were off-platform, on-target downfield throws. So that's just a little extra something he can do. I would imagine at some point in the pre-draft process, you have these conversations about what else can these players do. But I loved his game, and he stuck out every single time you turned the tape on. You had him in wide receiver 2 behind Jordan Tyson. What did you like about him?
I liked all those things you mentioned, man. I think he can play X. I think he can play outside as the X. I think he can play in the slot, like you said. And then you look at, I think he tracks the ball very well. That was one of the things that really stood out, his ability to track the ball, his run after the catch skills. I thought he had quickness, twitches, and burst just off the ball. But one of the things that really stood out to me that I thought was cool was his ability to escape at the second level. Right, because and I think that's a forgotten skill at the wide receiver position because of the way college football is played right now. Everyone gets a ton of free releases off the ball, but you see this guy versus squat and mud defenders at the second level. He can win quick, get up to the second level, and still make someone miss. To create separation. And then, like I talked about, his ability with the run after the catch. But the key to his run after the catch is his ability to make quick transitions after he secures the ball. He can snatch and then quick put his foot in the ground, get vertical. And then from there, he can be creative and make plays. Now, one thing that really stood out about him, and why I put him at number 2 for me, is that, he's productive. We see it there on the screen, 75 catches, 904 yards, but he only has one career 100-yard game, to date. And so that kind of, caught my attention. And so for me, I do see this guy, he's going to be able to contribute quickly at the next level. But, again, look at it, 12.1 yards a catch. And so I want to see this guy, and he makes tons of explosive plays downfield, but I want to see it translate to better production. Again, only one 100-yard game, throughout his career. So that's where I gave Jordan Tyson the nod over him as wide receiver 1, because you saw the more consistent production on a week-to-week basis.
No, that's an interesting point. And I sometimes struggle to see the forest for the trees. And I say that because our buddy Rick Spielman used to say this all the time. Especially, I love Jalen Hyatt coming out of Tennessee, but Rick kept reiterating to me, and I want to hear what your thoughts are on this. 1 year productivity can be viewed as a good thing, or it could be viewed as, why did it only happen 1 year? That's not necessarily the case with Antonio Williams, but to your larger point, you want to see more explosiveness throughout the course of the season by the time that the season's over. So when you see 1 year productivity, just a general conversation and talking point, does that make you feel good? Like, okay, this guy finally got it? Or do you have some trepidation in that, why has this just now happened? Why hasn't it been a consistent thing over your college career?
I kind of lean to the latter and okay, why hasn't this happened more frequently, right? And so, again, it's what I've learned and what I know is particularly about SEC, ACC football. The guys that produce at a high level quickly, they're out of there, right? They're gone, and the real guys leave after 3 years, and that's just what it is. But even guys that have the 1 year production, that after being in college, 3 years, to me, those guys it's just inconsistent. There's no other way to put it. They're inconsistent, and then they just hit it that 1 year, and then they're trying to cash in and want to get the heck out of there. So, and then we get an unrefined project at the next level. And so, to your point, talking about Jalen Hyatt, I wasn't the biggest Jalen Hyatt fan. I saw his blue trait and his vertical speed, but I didn't see a route runner. And then I saw the tightness that would limit him to becoming, one of the elite level route runners. But going back to Antonio Williams, I've watching him and, putting in some calls, and the best comp that I've heard, someone say, and I've been in the building with the guy, was Emmanuel Sanders. And
Oh,
Emmanuel Sanders was a third round pick coming out of SMU, but we know what Emmanuel Sanders was and became a really good pro.
yeah, Emmanuel was drafted 2010, I believe, same draft class as Antonio Brown to the Steelers, who was a sixth-round pick. And Emmanuel had a better start to his career. Antonio Brown ended up being one of the best route runners on the field. He's working through some off-field stuff as we sit here. But in terms of Antonio Williams, my conversations about Jalen Hyatt weren't about Antonio, just a general point that I was curious to get your thoughts on. But Antonio Williams, as we sit here, consensus with the first pick, number one on our wide receiver list. And he did have 8 focus drops, but I thought he was so good on all the millions of targets he got last year that I thought he would overcome that. All right, that's our top 5 wide receivers. Consensus with the first pick, Summer Scouting Series 2025, looking to 2026. As I mentioned, Rain, on Thursday, talking about God's position, the running backs. So I'm extremely excited to hear what you have to say about that. That's right. In the meantime, thanks to all you guys who watch and listen to us. You can check out With the First Pick wherever you get your podcast, scan that QR code, and we will see you guys in the next one.